3 in the morning. You know the feeling. Not fully awake, not fully asleep, but your body has already made the decision for you. You push back the covers, you find the wall, you make the trip. And then you lie back down in the dark and you wait. Wait to fall back asleep. Wait for the alarm. Wait for a morning that feels like it already started on the wrong foot. And the next day, the fatigue is real. Not the tiredness of someone who stayed up late, the deeper kind. The kind that sits behind your eyes and follows you through the morning and doesn't lift the way it used to. I'm 83. I sleep through the night. I wake up when I choose to, not when my bladder decides for me. I have energy in the morning that I used to think was just gone, something I'd lost along the way and wasn't getting back. What changed was not a medication. It was understanding what was actually causing those 3 in the morning trips and addressing that directly. What I'm going to explain today is something almost nobody connects. Not in the appointments, not in the urology referrals, not in the advice about limiting fluids after 6 o'clock. Because the 3 in the morning wake-up is not a bladder problem. It's a blood sugar problem. And once I name the mechanism, you're going to understand why everything you've been told to do about it has been aimed at the wrong target. And I'm going to tell you about a drink, something I make in the late afternoon, something that costs almost nothing, that research has associated with lower blood sugar and fewer overnight trips to the bathroom. But the timing matters. Drink it at the wrong hour and it will make things worse. Stay with me because the hour is part of the mechanism. Her name was Evelyn, 81 years old, retired seamstress from a small city in Alabama, 31 years with a type 2 diagnosis. She'd been waking up 2, sometimes 3 times a night to use the bathroom for so long she had stopped mentioning it to her doctor. It was just part of her life, just what nighttime looked like now. She'd stopped drinking anything after 5 in the afternoon. She'd tried cranberry supplements her neighbor recommended. She'd done everything except ask the right question, which was, why is this happening at all? Her daughter drove her to every appointment. They sat together in the waiting room and they talked about everything except the thing that was quietly stealing Evelyn's sleep, her energy, and her mornings, because neither of them knew the two were connected, the blood sugar and the bathroom. Nobody had named it. Here is the mechanism, and I want you to hold this clearly because it changes everything. Your kidneys have a threshold, a ceiling for how much glucose they can reabsorb from the blood back into the body. Research has described this clearly. When blood sugar stays elevated overnight, the kidneys reach a point where they begin pushing that excess glucose out through the urine. They cannot hold it anymore. And glucose pulls water with it, osmotically. Wherever glucose goes, water follows. That is the volume. That is the urgency. That is why you wake up at 3 in the morning, not because your bladder is failing, not because you are getting old, not because you drank too much water at dinner. Because your blood sugar is elevated while you sleep, and your kidneys are doing exactly what kidneys are supposed to do when blood sugar is elevated. They are filtering it out, and they are taking water with them. And there's a second layer. Research has described how the liver itself releases stored glucose in the early morning hours, a biological process driven by hormones rising in preparation for waking. In a body managing insulin resistance, that overnight rise adds to the glucose load the kidneys are already working through. So by 2, 3, 4 in the morning, you have glucose coming in from 2 directions, whatever was circulating when you went to sleep, and whatever the liver has been releasing since midnight. The kidneys respond to all of it. This is the part that nobody explained to Evelyn. That the trips to the bathroom at 3 in the morning were a symptom of something metabolic, not something urological. That the target was the blood sugar, not the bladder. And that addressing the blood sugar in the evening hours, reducing what the kidneys had to filter overnight, was the way to change what happened in the dark. And there's something else nobody told her. Research has documented that a single night of disrupted sleep, the kind that comes from waking at 3 to use the bathroom, lying awake, falling back, increases insulin resistance the following day. The nocturia isn't just uncomfortable, it is actively making the blood sugar problem worse the next morning. The disrupted sleep raises the resistance. The raised resistance elevates the glucose. The elevated glucose causes more nocturia. It is a cycle, and it runs on its own unless something interrupts it. Drop your fasting number in the comments, and if you're waking up at night, tell me how many times. I read every one. You do everything right. You eat clean, you take your pills, and the next morning that number is still too high. I know that frustration. I lived it for years. They never tell you about the morning rise, your sugar climbing while you sleep, no matter what you did the day before. You wake up, you test, and it feels like the work didn't count, like you're stuck depending on more and more and getting nowhere. I was done feeling powerless. I didn't want to throw out my doctor's plan. I wanted something natural and simple I could add to it, something that finally moved that morning number. I'll walk you through what changed it for me, and the natural support I add every day is in the free presentation linked below. The drink is hibiscus tea, not chamomile, not any of the standard sleep teas. Hibiscus, the dried flowers steeped in hot water, deep red, slightly tart. Something you can find at any grocery store, any health food store, many Latin and Caribbean markets for $4 to $6 for a supply that lasts weeks. Here is why it matters for blood sugar. Research has shown an association between hibiscus and lower fasting blood sugar in people managing type 2 diabetes. The plant contains compounds, a class called anthocyanins, the pigments that give it that deep red color that studies suggest may support how the body responds to insulin. Not as a replacement for medication, not as a cure, as a complement. A gentle, inexpensive, daily complement that works on the same mechanism your medication is working on from a different biological angle. Less glucose circulating in the evening hours means less glucose for the kidneys to filter overnight. Less filtration means less water pulled through. Less water means fewer trips to the bathroom. The math is simple. The mechanism is real. Check with your doctor before adding anything to your routine, especially if you're on blood pressure medication. Hibiscus has been associated with mild blood pressure effects, and your doctor should know you're using it. But for most people managing blood sugar, this is a conversation that takes 30 seconds and ends with no objection. Now the timing. This is not optional. This is the part that determines whether the drink helps or hurts. Drink it in the late afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, with an early dinner at the latest, not after 7, not as an evening drink, not anywhere near bedtime. Because hibiscus has a mild diuretic effect. That effect is real, and it is part of how it works. But you want that effect happening during waking hours, when you can respond to it normally, when your kidneys are working through their load while you are upright and active. If you drink hibiscus an hour before bed, you have given your kidneys a diuretic signal at exactly the wrong moment. The 3 a.m. trip will happen earlier and with more urgency. The same drink, a different hour, a completely different outcome. That is the mechanism. That is what your body needs to hear before it decides when to act. 1 cup, steeped for 5 to 7 minutes from dried hibiscus flowers. No sugar, a little honey if you need it, or a squeeze of lemon. Every day in the late afternoon. Evelyn started with 1 cup at 4 in the afternoon. She was skeptical. She had tried so many things. By the second week, she was waking once instead of twice. By week 5, most nights, she slept through. She told her daughter at breakfast one morning that she had forgotten what it felt like to just wake up because it was morning. Her daughter cried. Evelyn told me later it wasn't just the sleep. It was what the sleep gave back. The mornings, the energy, the feeling that the day was hers again from the beginning. The hibiscus addresses the evening glucose load, but the overnight window responds to more than one habit. And if the kidneys are still filtering a high glucose load from other sources, the hibiscus alone is working with one hand tied. I haven't cut fluid after 5 o'clock in years. I drink what I need when I need it. I walk after dinner. I'm careful about what goes into my body in the last hour before sleep, and the nights take care of themselves. That's not age. That's a system. The first supporting habit, what you eat in the last hour before bed. A fast carbohydrate eaten alone, crackers, toast, sweet fruit without protein alongside it, produces a glucose rise that can persist 2 to 3 hours into the night. That glucose adds to the load the kidneys are already filtering from dinner. Stop the late-night fast carb, and you reduce the overnight filtration demand. If you're genuinely hungry, a small amount of protein, a few walnuts, half a cup of cottage cheese, satisfies without spiking. The second, water during the day, not the evening. Drinking enough water during waking hours helps the kidneys manage their work more evenly rather than concentrating it at night. Most people with nocturia cut all fluids after a certain hour, which can paradoxically concentrate the urine and increase urgency. Hydrate well during the day. Let the evening taper naturally. The third, a 10-minute walk after dinner. Movement activates a glucose pathway in your muscles that works independently of insulin. Research has shown that a short walk after dinner clears a meaningful amount of glucose from the blood before sleep. Less glucose at midnight means less for the kidneys to filter at 3 in the morning. Hibiscus in the late afternoon. No fast carbs alone before bed. Water during the day. A walk after dinner. These 4 habits close around the same overnight problem from 4 different directions. They reduce the glucose load, they reduce the filtration demand, and they give your kidneys a quieter night. I want to say something before we close. You've been managing this for a long time. The interrupted sleep, the fatigue that doesn't lift, the mornings that start already depleted. And somewhere along the way, it may have started to feel like something you just lived with, not something that could change. Just the shape of the days now. I know what that costs. Not just the sleep, what broken nights do to everything around them. The way you cancel plans because you're too tired to be good company. The way you hesitate before committing to a trip, a visit, a weekend with the grandchildren, wondering if you'll have the energy, wondering if you'll need a bathroom at 3 in the morning in someone else's house, wondering if you're becoming someone people have to accommodate instead of someone who just shows up. The quiet fear of being a burden to the people you love most. That fear is real. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't exist. But here's what I know. The mechanism I described today responds. The kidneys are not broken. They are doing their job. What they are working with, the glucose load, the overnight filtration demand, that can change. And when it changes, the nights change. And when the nights change, the mornings do too. And the mornings are where everything else begins. The energy, the plans, the people, the days that feel like they belong to you. It is not too late for that. The body is still listening. The system still responds. You are not out of time. If you watched this whole thing, you're not the type who gives up. You're the type who keeps looking for a real answer. So let me be straight with you. The morning number isn't your fault, and it isn't just diabetes. It's the dawn rise, and it responds to the right daily habits. The goal was never to quit your treatment. It was to support it naturally so you finally see that number move and feel in control again. Alongside the steps I showed you, I take a simple, natural support every day to help keep my blood sugar in a healthy range. Affordable, easy, and it works with my doctor's plan, not against it. The free presentation is in the description below. Go see it for yourself. And keep your doctor in the loop. This is support, not a replacement. Subscribe if you want to keep hearing what your doctor hasn't had time to explain.